the younger, well, maybe not the younger, there's a certain age range, the sweet spot where if you get married, the likelihood of success, long-term relationship maybe working out, the divorce, decreasing. Apparently, the golden age is 28 to 32. Apparently, by a sociologist from Utah who said, "Hey, man, we found that around that age, hey, it's a golden, it's beautiful, bellissimo, right? But 33, little gray area, right?" So, what are y'all thoughts in regards to does it make sense that there is a sweet spot in terms of when people are coming together and choosing to form bonds? Like maybe is it too young? Is it too old? What are y'all thoughts about 28 to 32 being the sweet spot for people to get hitched?
So, as someone who got married early in life, i.e., 21, I actually kind of agree with the whole 28. As a matter of fact, if I had to do it again, I would wait till I'm at least 25 because you're still kind of developing who you are. You're still trying to figure out the ins and outs of life. And it's a little bit harder, I think, when you have to develop and who you are when you're with someone because they're also in the same process of learning who they are and developing themselves too. It's basically you have two two individuals who are partially formed. And as a person who believes in lifelong learning, I think that this was a lesson of almost, I want to call it struggle a little bit because we basically had to mature together, right? And considering at the age in which our frontal lobe and all our brain fully developed, I also think that so happened to play into that because apparently we are actually fully mature at the age of 27 brain activity wise. So 28 to 32, I believe that we are able to make those logical, rational decisions and move forward. But more importantly, you already recognize what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You're at the point where you should have a job or whatever you should be somewhat in your career. You shouldn't be floundering, trying to figure out what you still need to do in life. And to be honest, if it's as a woman, if marriage is your goal and you want to get married, your early 20s, sure, do whatever's clever. But by 25, stop playing around, start dating with intentions. Because if this is the sweet spot, then go ahead and make it happen. Now, I'm not discouraging marrying earlier or marrying later because currently in our society, we actually have a tendency to marry later, especially women, and to include having babies now even later. I think last week, Nick, you mentioned that women in their 40s for the first time ever are outpacing in pregnancies compared to teens. And so I think that this study come at a pretty much appropriate time considering where we are in this so-called gender war that we're currently residing in. So I say kudos with it. I think it actually helps guide people to start dating with intentions, particularly if you're a woman.
I think it's great. I think it's great because I actually married my first wife, my late wife, around that same age range. I think we would have still been married had she not passed away. Don't get me wrong, the marriage wasn't perfect. Every marriage has problems, but there's something about like growing in the same rhythm with the person that you're with. And when people are older people tend to want somebody who looks like what they could pull when they were younger, right? And then so there's that dissonance that happens as you get older. It's harder for the older women to be as appealing to the men their age, and it's harder for the older men to be as appealing probably to the women their age. And so there's this dissonance that happens. People start looking for somebody 10 years younger, 10 years older, and then that gets really crazy because then those people aren't in the same time zones, like in terms of phases of their lives. I know a couple of couples with 10 years between them, and one of them's like on there, hey, let's get our legacy together, and the other one's like, yo, turn up, it's Thursday night, right? But they're 10 years apart. And that makes sense in the seasons of their lives. So I think that number is really good. I mean, personally, that was my number. I told my wife, first wife, I was like, listen, let's go and get married because I want to have our last kid by 32. So when the child turns 18, going off to college, I'm 50, I'm done. Like I had done the math and everything. So, I mean, shout out to everybody whenever they choose to have their family, as long as you're raising them with love, that's all that really matters. But I do think starting earlier is better. I think it allows you to grow with the person, it allows you to mature. And I think when you marry someone that young, even as you all age together, I think you still kind of see them as that person that they were when you got married, right? They still kind of hold that value with you and you guys grow up together as opposed to when you're 45 and you're looking at it out there at the dating pool, and you're like, ugh, she is not held up well. Nah, that's not aging well. Look at her mama. That's not, no, no, no. So then you end up like Shannon Sharp. Okay, I'm done there. Y'all go ahead.
Not look at her mama, cause I was kinda extra. No, I get it. I actually when I hear these kind of stats, I'm always a little bit of a cynic. And I think that because as times change, we're always evolving and moving. And so is the social norms and kind of what we do. So I think earlier in this century, it was advantageous to marry young and to, have all these benefits because women weren't afforded a lot of things. So for that benefit, women were like, yeah, I'm 18, college is not necessarily what I'm looking at and this is an option. Marriage was security in a lot of ways. So now when I hear this, new stat about being 28 to early 30s, I think it kind of fits because if you really think about it from a psychology standpoint, your prefrontal cortex, that memory and decision making place right there that kind of regulates all of your emotional mood states, it doesn't really fully formally finish growing in a man until 26. And that's no shade, that's science. So, because of that, if you think about the fact that a person isn't completely as fully developed, they're not going to be making the best decisions. They're not always going to be, in the right direction of their thought processes. And so, if we're waiting till 28 and there's a maturity factor for both people, hopefully, if they decide to do college or they're ingrained in a career somewhere, I think it'll lead to more success for sure. So, I'm here for it.